mainly also to use kind of outside, and how can you kind of simplify it? So, the outside lights are turned on at a specific time and turned off at a specific time, so you don't have to care about it.
So step one was a couple of lights.
Step one was a couple of lights.
And that was okay. So, and from here, what happened?
No, and then I got start talking to a colleague, and he mentioned this product called a Home Assistant, which is kind of an open source software, which has the, idea to kind of bring all of this together. So regardless of kind of which product you buy, everything can be centralized into one platform, and you can build automations across all of them. So then it became, as soon as you pop it into your network, it's like, oh, it discovers your router. Now I can see which devices is online on my Wi-Fi. And then I can use that as an input to automate, when I come home and my phone goes onto the Wi-Fi, I can automate that the lights go on, or that, and it detected my very short alarm. And then it can, as I come home and it detects on my Wi-Fi, it can turn off the alarm, it can turn on the lights, and then we, move on from there to kind of automate the garage door. And then you can, get notifications saying that, oh, your garage door has been open for 30 minutes.
Do you have a vision for the future, like 3 years from now or 5 years from now, when you arrive at home, how that experience is going to be like?
No, I think it's a bit difficult as well. You need to always ensure that everyone in the family kind of accepts these automations as well, because,
the change management part.
So which automation was the hardest change management?
I think it's somehow some of the lighting, because it's, sometimes some of them you can't really turn on and off without the app if it's not done automatically. So I think that my wife struggles a bit with, and she thinks it's, what the hell are you doing? So
basically, before I could press on this switch, now you ask me to go into a fucking app.
Basically, but the idea is to, rather than to use kind of the smart lights, started actually to put the kind of, you put the things behind your switches instead. So then you can use the light switch as normal, but you can also automate it.
So now you're taking the next step of having a more smooth and integrated automation in the normal workflow. Yeah,
because also, if you have guests over, if you have someone else over, and, they might have a hard time managing if you didn't need to go into an app, or, if something doesn't work properly.
We have New Year's dinner. Before you come to our home, please download this app to go to the toilet.
Or if my parents-in-law are over and, the light in their bedroom turn on at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, because, it's one of the window lights, and they typically turn on kind of in the...
What's the weirdest reaction you've gotten from a guest?
I haven't gotten that much weird reactions, actually. I think it's just been annoying. Why did its light turn on? It's like, well, it does that.
It does that. It's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But what did you say? You have even red light and green light for sleep for the children. Is that true? That's cool. That's
I have it
cool.
kind of in my kids' room. It's kind of a night light, which turns red as we go to bed, but that I do manually, because it's not always the same time. So then it turns down and it dims down, and then it's kind of red during the night. And then I can't remember what it is, like 6:20 or something, it turns green. And then, my kids know that, okay, now it's morning and it's okay to get up.
Yeah, so don't get up when the light is still at night light. No. That's a good programming, by the way.
Did you consider having a yellow light, like be ready?
No. It's better from green to red, because otherwise, they need clear rules. They're only 2 and 5, we can't...
binary.
Yeah, we can't expect too much, but, it works sometimes, not always, but, sometimes also you're a bit annoyed because we need to go down and watch TV because the light is green.
You don't have to.
No.
But let's go a little bit techy now. So I can imagine someone says, you should buy everything from one supplier here, like a Google Home and all that. But what route did you take on how to build this?
No, I really like the concept of I want everything to be able to be managed locally. So I rather not rely on the cloud to be able to manage this, because, we've seen so many times that kind of home automation providers, either kind of close down their APIs to limit that you only can use their app, or they close down entirely, and you basically need to brick your things and throw them away. So I want everything to be able to be controlled locally.
So you want to have your local Wi-Fi as a local network.
Yeah. And all the, if you use kind of Zigbee or Z-Wave or the other kind of home automation protocols, and Thread coming up now. But
okay, so let's talk about what are there's a couple protocols which are very much in tune to home automation. So what are they?
I mean, the main ones right now is Zigbee and Z-Wave. So basically, they're mesh protocols, which, the devices you have can talk to each other, and then you kind of build out your network based on that. And then there's a new one coming out, which is Thread, which I think is going to be interesting because it's backed by kind of Google, Apple, Amazon.
And what is Thread? What's differentiating with Thread?
I mean, it's just a new protocol. It's basically, if you adhere to these standards, these things can communicate to each other.
Yeah.
And are the devices either one protocol or the other, or many devices, both protocols?
Zigbee and Thread will be quite, most of them can, switch. The old Zigbee products can most likely be upgraded to be able to communicate over Thread. But Z-Wave is something completely different. That's a kind of proprietary thing.
So now you need to think about standardizing on one of these protocols.
Yes.
Thread, you think?
Yeah, probably. There's not that many products out yet.
So that right now is critical mass of products that sort of dictates.
But there's a lot of Wi-Fi stuff as well. So a lot of people go Wi-Fi.
And why wouldn't you go Wi-Fi only? What was the problem with that?
I think it depends on how many devices you have. How good is your Wi-Fi network?
True.
Basically, is it capable of handling kind of hundreds of devices? And then I think it's kind of a security aspect as well. I think the Wi-Fi products is easier; they have better access to the internet, and I think this kind of home automation protocols can kind of talk locally
without being open in the same way.
Yeah.
And if someone were to be inspired and wants to start down this rabbit hole, where do you go as a first point of learning online?
I think it depends on how deep you want to go. Taking the route I've taken with kind of Home Assistant, then you need to have a server of some type. You can run fine on a Raspberry Pi, but you need to kind of know it, and then it's like a Docker install, and you need so it's a bit more complex. But I think otherwise, any of the I think, lights is typically a good way to start. It's easy.
We have Philips Hue. We have many different and IKEA has products which are quite sort of entry point.
Yeah, and also, if you buy Philips Hue, and you get the Philips Hue hub, you can buy the trådfri lights and use it with the hub, because you both use Zigbee, so you can actually use the IKEA lights with the Hue hub if you have it.
So maybe one of the sort of tips from the coach here, if there's one thing you need to learn or understand, is like have a look what protocol they're running on, because then you can have a sort of, will this work in mine? If I do that and I add this, it kind of will work if it's Zigbee at least. So that's a simple.
Yeah, but I would also look, how worried are you about kind of using the cloud for this? And I think that's up to each individual person. Some of them can be run locally as well and use their cloud interface, but I think it's, because we've seen, there's this podcast on Home Assistant where she can, they always play this sound when, a cloud provider kind of withdraws the access or kind of removes their cloud solution or start paying for it, or that you need to start paying a kind of a subscription fee for it. And that's not really what you promised when you bought the product. And then you have a product at home which you either need to pay a subscription for it to continue using, or you need to throw it away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Home automation. Well, I think it's time to sort of get into the meat of this podcast. But today, before I introduce you, Daniel, I just want to say hello to Kai as our guest host. This is something we are trying today. So welcome, Kai.
Thank you very much.
Who are you, Kai? You get 30 seconds, not more.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to just say I'm Kai Andersson. Excited to work in AI. I've done so for the last 5 years. Work with AI Sweden and a few other companies, but I guess I'm here in my capacity as trying to change and accelerate Sweden and learn from Daniel in terms of what...
You're not here in that capacity. You are here because you came in for a beer and we asked you to sit down.
Okay, that's true.
And then basically you've been on one of our guests before, so we love you and we think you're awesome.
Yeah, okay. Honestly, I'll just bring my brain and
bring your brain,
my
please.
autism and just be honest and ask uncomfortable questions.
Sounds good.
And then Goran, we have you sitting down with us today. You're typically a lot of times the producer behind the the production, so to speak. But now today
we have Kirill now.
We have Kirill today.
Good. So Anders is gone. That means we can do changes.
Yeah.
So today I'm playing the devil's advocate. That will be the guy who basically, okay, now it's enough time with this topic. We move to the second one, right? See, thank you so much about that.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
So maybe this is the producer who's sort of, dudes, I'm trying to cut this up into different segments, but it never works. Put me on the show.
Yeah. So, no, I think it's going to be very great.
Cool. So let's try. So a little bit. We'll doing it. Super cool that you could just on the whim join, Kai. Thank you.
It's very liberating to get the question 5 minutes ahead.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
A few weeks.
So
ahead.
Professionally prepared.
It's after work. What do you mean? You don't get there. Yeah. You're going to get invited to after work. You just pop by.
After work.
So and now back to the main guest, of course, Daniel Engberg. So very much welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
And I guess there's a couple of years ago we met the first time. I had just started Derax. I think we were on the same conference in Berlin.
Yeah.
And that was a good show, good conference, and then that was kind of good dinner. We had some good conversations about watches and drank some beers, and that was cool. So, fantastic to have you here now, and super excited also because of what you're doing in SAS Airlines. So we'll talk about that shortly. But let's start from the beginning. So a very simple but maybe hard question: who is Daniel Engberg?
Who is? Yeah, I'm actually grown up in the suburbs south of Stockholm. Long time ago. Then I started out kind of a journey which was kind of, what should I do? Always trying to choose the open choices. Ended up in Linköping studying industrial engineering and management. And then, had a year abroad, did the fun stuff. And then, moving on to Accenture after studies. Same, starting out on kind of technology strategy. So how do we work with, worked a lot with different kind of large Swedish enterprises across Sweden, and focusing a lot on kind of how do we build a great IT strategy? How do we create an operating model to actually deliver on technology? And more I was interested in kind of how do we actually take companies into adopting new types of technology, focusing on, how do we actually change this? How do we set up this kind of innovative ways of working? And how can we, get this large companies, because mainly that's what we worked with, kind of this standard large companies, and how can we actually, both ensure that we kind of get a stable environment for everything that needs to be delivered, but at the same time being able to kind of manage to be faster and, execute on the strategic agenda.
So that kind of work at Accenture, where would you sort of, when you reflect back on that time, are there any common themes that you sort of learned or you saw that even if you went into different industries, that this was the stuff that really made the difference, in your engagements? What was the sort of critical stuff that you can sort of...
No, I think my view is that it's a lot kind of on the focus and the priority. To be able to succeed, we need to ensure that everyone is aligned on the priorities that we need to execute on. And also to ensure, the change management aspect of it. And, understand that each organization is different. There is not a single kind of, you can't take a single blueprint to any company and say, execute this. We have the great framework here. Just follow that and everything will be good. That's not true. I mean, frameworks are great, and we used a lot of them at Accenture. There are millions of frameworks. But then you also need to understand them and what would they include, but how can we adapt them to the current situation?
What's the context? Is it a decentralized organization and culture? Is it decentralized? All this.
Exactly. And also, how do we, I used to think of it now as kind of references. How do we ensure that we don't miss any obvious things? I think frameworks are great for that, because then you can look at like, okay, this framework says I need all of this. Do I have some kind of blank spots which I can get inspired by looking at this framework? then we need to think about, is it valuable for us or isn't it?
And when you arrived at solutions or strategies for the clients when you worked at Accenture, was it always like, yeah, this is perfect?
Of course not.
Yeah, and what was the main theme there when there were pushback?
No, I mean, it's pushback always comes at different levels. It was very rarely that, you were completely wrong. And I think you learned it over time as well. The anchoring process during this is actually extremely valuable to actually get the change. Sometimes in the beginning, we could do kind of a 4-week strategy project. We were maybe 4 people, working super hard, delivering a lot. But then you realize afterwards, how much of this is actually gone into the people that we're working together with. I mean, do they have the capacity to actually react to this and kind of let it sink in? And what does it actually mean, what we're talking about? Or do they think it's, good things we put on a paper? But do they actually kind of understand it? And do they actually, the entire change management aspect of it? And I think that's my perspective of the challenge with kind of strategy consulting in general. I mean, I think it's a lot of times the kind of recommendations are great and kind of the insights are great. And I think the kind of assist analysis and everything is great. But then, when it's such a short time frame and there's so much kind of output in that, I think a lot of companies struggle to actually do something great with it because it becomes kind of too much in too short time and you can only kind of absorb so much.
But would you say, I mean, like having been a consultant and being very successful in doing that for many years, and now you've been, in the line organization, so to speak, has your view on consulting, or have you sort of on yourself as when you were a consultant, have you shifted in some mindset or philosophy or how to look at consulting or how to look at yourself, or any lessons learned on how you changed and how you view this?
Yeah, I've changed a lot, I think. I mean, also during my time at Accenture, I think I changed a lot. What's actually, I mean, how can a consultant maximize the value they bring to company? I mean, that's what they really want to do. I mean, otherwise, I hope at least, otherwise they should do something else.
Exactly.
But then I think, coming back to that, I think we need to look at how can we have kind of longer engagements, which might not be as high intensity. I know some of kind of the top management isn't really keen on that because they want, results soon. But I think for the organization to actually, understand it and kind of bring the change management into the kind of consulting work, I think is extremely important to be successful. So to get the long-term change.
Because to get sustainable change and sustainable adoptions of new ways of working, even if you can understand it strategically and in a PowerPoint quite fast, the nitty-gritty tactical maneuvering for years and to fix the blockers, that is a different time scale or pace, I guess.
Yes, like I understand the concept, but I don't understand what it means.
Exactly.
I mean, it's that all over again. And, of course, depending on the topic, sometimes, a 4-week strategy engagement might be perfect. Should we take road A or B? That might be suitable. But if we're talking about kind of more kind of digital transformation type of activities where we need to kind of switch around an entire organization, I think kind of an 8-week engagement is probably not enough.
Not enough.
Is there anything where you that's obvious to you now that you're thinking back on yourself back in those days at Accenture that was like, oh, why didn't I understand that at that time? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think one of these kind of frameworks I talked about before, in the beginning, I thought like, oh, this is perfect. I have the answer.
I have the answer.
But, in real life, it's not that, It might be a good starting point, but you need to always kind of work with it continuously and adapt it. And then you need to understand more and more. I think that's a struggle of consultants as well, because, a lot of consultants are younger, may not have that much experience. They're very good at certain things, But I think also, with time, as you do it more and more, you get those insights and understand, how to actually kind of adapt it, and then kind of adapt it to the organization you're working for. And I think that's kind of one of the key aspects. I think it was a great time at Accenture, and I learned so much, kind of especially around the kind of communication side. How do you interact with kind of different stakeholders? How do you ensure that you target the message to the right people to kind of get your ideas through? And how do you kind of deliver your message? I think.
And if you think about that, summarizing, so you went from university, right, into a really high achievement type job as an Accenture consultant, right? How would you see that? What are the pros and cons of that career path to start there? Would you recommend it, or what are the pros and cons?
No, I would definitely recommend it. I mean, if you're interested in kind of seeing different type of companies, different type of problems, also, I mean, at all of the, I think, larger consulting firms, if you work in the kind of strategy part, there is a lot of, people who has a lot of experience, and that you can kind of draw on in your engagements. And I think also that's something, if you go into that, but use that experience, ensure that you pull in the right experts, because then you also learn a lot. I mean, your knowledge curve can, be exponential. Because
you have this huge network within your company, if you work in a company like Accenture, of course.
And you always have kind of 50 people who's done the exact same thing before at other companies. And then you can get kind of the insight and knowledge from them to kind of fast track your own knowledge. But I think it's also, the cons, I guess. I mean, it's challenging. And I think, if you, depending on what type of person you are, I think, being able to leave at a certain point and not seeing the end results can be quite challenging as well, It's like, okay, we delivered this great. We worked so hard for this 8 weeks, to deliver this final pitch to the kind of steering group of this engagement. And then, you leave. And then you're uncertain what happened with that afterwards sometimes. It's like, did they just put it in a drawer? It's like, oh, this looks great. This is definitely what we're going to do. Let's put it in the drawer here. We'll execute it when we have time.
Yeah, you don't get the same fulfillment as if you build a house.
No.
But, please.
Yeah, something that touched me, what you said, is the anchoring process. If you were to explain that a little bit more, why is that so important? Like anchoring and people.
But I think it's because, if we really want a sustainable change, if we really want to change the direction and change, the way we work and, what we do, anchoring with the people who's in the organization is kind of the most important part. Because otherwise, we won't see sustainable change. Then people will continue to work as they always done in general.
Yeah.
There are always some people, of course, who really wants to change, but a lot of people is kind of, I don't know what to do with this.
No, but it's as you said before, this sounds really great. I like the concept, but how does that mean I need to change Monday to Friday my daily job in order to fulfill this? That's not always so easy to understand, because then you probably need to peel the onion 3 or 4 layers to get to
what do I need to do tomorrow.
Exactly.
But
and just to wrap up a little bit on Accenture, so what was your sort of career path within Accenture? How many years, and did you do a couple of different roles or same role? Or?
It was 7 years at Accenture. So similar role, just different kind of, you go from an analyst to becoming a consultant to becoming a manager. And that's when I left, basically. So
same fundamental focus, but you in seniority.
Yeah, but then of course the organization shift over time as well. So first I was part of kind of, I can't remember what the names were, but then we were kind of, the IT strategy was close to kind of the infrastructure strategy part, which is more kind of related to IT. And then, business strategy and IT strategy was merged together. And then we will call it technology strategy and, merge over time. And, and towards the end I was working, trying to work more, RPA started becoming a hype then as well, and then...
What year is this? This is about
2015 maybe, somewhere. Yeah.
And what is the trigger and what is the path when you're leaving? What is making you leave Accenture, or what is the opportunity what is happening here in order for you to... What is going on in your mind, and how was the whole shift? What happened?
I think for me, it was a lot about thinking, I just had my first kid. And then also I was thinking, you know, okay, if I want to continue now, I was a manager, and then you kind of lead the engagements, but you work day to day on the engagements. And then, you know, as you move, I mean, it's basically up or out more or less. And then, that's what you want as well. You don't want to be stuck in the same, at least not me.
Yeah.
So then, you know, it was either to go kind of the senior manager partner path, but then it becomes more and more sales and, you know, more and more that. And I'm not that interested in that, you know. I think, you know, I really like kind of getting my hands dirty and working on it. So that was kind of one. And then the other one was this, you know, how can I get the role through when I can see something through?
I know that.
Leaving the...
I've been there, done that.
To kind of...
Did you realize that drive or that was missing even before you left?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a process, you know, it takes time. It's not kind of something that comes in overnight.
No.
But then, of course, you kind of... you miss all your colleagues and you miss all, you know, because you have extremely, you know, people are highly engaged, are willing to work a lot, and who are, you know, really forward in trying to achieve something around you all the time.
And so where did you go after Accenture, and how did that happen?
I went to Scandinavian Airlines. And how did that happen? It was basically, I think, the spring of 2016, I did the IT strategy for Scandinavian Airlines as a consultant. Oh. And then, you know, I had a relationship with the CIO, you know, discussing, you know, his organization, you know, how can, you know, he improve. And, you know, then it was like, I have this head of IT strategy role, you know, would you be interested? And then I joined in the summer of 2017.
Head of IT strategy.
Head of IT strategy.
And what did that entail at that point?
You know, it was a new role, and a lot of the focus was kind of how can we, you know, he needed support in how can we take, you know, better decisions regarding technology and the way forward, and, you know, how can we actually ensure that we own the entire strategy going forward, and how can we continuously work on kind of adapting the way we do. So there was a lot of kind of involved in different types of pre-studies, and there were some kind of large organizational changes going on, which I was involved in, you know, regarding loyalty and other things. So that was kind of a lot of work. But then he knew I was going on parental leave in January 2018, so that was kind of 6 months.
So he knew when he hired you that this was in the cards.
Yeah. And then, you know, during that time as well, it was, you know, a lot of discussions around kind of AI, automation, or a lot of discussions mainly around kind of automation and machine learning, and how can we assess that. So right before I left for Grisha, I was like pitching the idea, you know, we should start kind of an AI center of excellence here, you know, because, you know, we see so many opportunities in this kind of, the first focus was RPA, because we see so many kind of manual processes that we can just automate. So then when I came back from paternity leave, and during that time, we actually created the kind of head of AI role. And then I got that as well as the IT strategy role in the beginning. So then it was kind of building up kind of the first AI center of excellence, you know, hiring the first people, getting the first projects rolling. And in the beginning, it was a lot of RPA, you know, getting the first processes automated, and so on.
This is about 17, 18?
Yeah, this was the fall of 17.
And do you remember, like, when you got started, like, what was your sort of beginning here? What was your focus? You remember that when you started to hire people, and was that you just get the right people in, or making up a business plan for the unit? Do you remember how you started?
Yeah, I basically started with, you know, two aspects. One was that we had some clear cases, you know, in automation. So one was kind of identifying, you know, we need some people to do this. And then the other piece was, you know, setting up the strategy, of course, you know, what should this be? Where should we go?
What's the mission for this department?
Yeah. And how should we scale it? You know, in which order should we take things? And then it was kind of setting up, you know, the first proof of concepts with RPA, at the same time kind of hiring the first people into the organization, to be able to kind of work on that. But that was
Has it been hard to find the right people?
Yes, it's always hard, but I think I was a bit lucky as well. I found an internal guy. It was and he's actually left right now. Moved to Singapore, but he had the background for kind of 8 years in SAS. He'd been at the lean office. He'd been in IT, so he kind of knew a lot of people in the organization, and he had good knowledge about kind of how do we kind of the entire processes. How do we kind of streamline processes, and from working with lean, it's quite a good segue actually into kind of process automation.
Yeah.
So I was quite lucky there, and he was kind of driving the whole kind of RPA journey.
So, isn't that one of the key topics when you are starting up a new venture or a new domain or a new team, that you need to find the critical first people who then can take accountability and have drive and motivation and vision on their own? Otherwise, it sort of bounces straight back, right?
No, and I think so. And I think also if you do it in kind of a large organization, I think it's very good also to find some internal people.
Yes.
That has been there for a time, that's actually, knows people in the organization, that has established relationships. It's so much easier.
Would you argue, this is really close to mind, have been in the same conversation or deep thoughts. Is it better at that point in time to find an internal person who can sort of build the bridges and who can do that, and then basically, okay, if I need to supplement this guy with hardcore technology competence in RPA, that's easy compared to getting an RPA guy in, and he should get the whole SAS network in 1 week, right?
I think so.
And to hammer that point home, what's the risk of if you just create a new team with everyone from outside? What could happen?
I think you can succeed with that as well. I think it takes longer time.
Yeah.
I think it's, you need to build up those relationships. You need to build the trust, especially when we talk about, especially around RPA, I think process automation, and I think people are afraid of it a lot of times. The people working in the processes, are coming here to automate my job. And, then you need, but if you already have the trust with someone saying that, no, this is not the goal. We're removing the boring stuff from you.
Yeah. It takes time to get to know people and get people along with you. So you worked 6 months before you went on parental leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just before you left, could you feel a personal change in comparison to Accenture now when you were in another type of environment?
Not that much then, because I was still kind of doing a little bit of internal consulting.
Yeah. Strategy work. You were kind of riding on your own old skills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
And now?
Yeah, now I feel a change. It's also, I think it's a change as well in the type of mindset and how fast you want things to go, As you came in as kind of even normal to this kind of highly stressed environments where, delivery was, and then you came into the line organization and you realize, things take time, We need to build a kind of trust. We need to build, the decisions. We need to ensure that everyone is aligned to some extent.
And this is super, super important, I think, because what's the change here? Or the change in mindset here, I think, is profound. Isn't it that you're sort of shifting the KPI, so to speak, from we need to deliver a strategy to how do I make it strategy into execution and how do I make it stick? Because now you're the line manager, right?
Yeah.
And also, I think it's a mental shift going from getting constant kicks every 8 weeks or energy boosts to living with not getting those constant kicks, but actually understanding the long-term value and being fine with that.
Yeah.
But I'll test you this. I've done stuff now in Scania that we draw out the like use case lifecycle methodology, DevOps, yada yada yada. Simple Excel checklist. Had it in the drawer since 2019. It's the same now, and we could have. The job is done in 19, right? No. So basically, maneuvering and putting the pieces together, getting to the pain, it's a 2-year journey to do something that on paper is done in 2 weeks in one very, very efficient workshop we had. that is, I mean, like that mindset shift. Am I here to do the Excel sheet and then it's my tick box and I get my paycheck? Or how do I get the mindset? How do I ingrain that into Monday to Friday? What are you supposed to do? Totally different ballgame in money.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's challenging.
Really challenging.
Yeah. But I think, I've been, quite lucky in that as well, because, when we started the kind of AI, it was I had kind of free reins as well. It was like, how do we prioritize the process we should do? It's like, we do it ourselves. Which type of machine learning products, whatever comes to mind. No, I mean, a bit like that, we didn't really have kind of strict steering and,
But maybe that's a good thing in the beginning, because who really knows when you're learning, right?
Exactly. And that was kind of the whole idea behind it. We need to start something, especially kind of, I think, around machine learning back then. We needed to start something. We needed to learn about what this was so that we could understand how we can apply it and how we can scale it. And, if you don't know, then it's, we can talk about cases all the time. It's better to kind of, instead of doing this kind of, let's assess the entire company, let's boil the ocean to find the best cases. It's more like, okay, here we have an interesting case. We have a business that actually wants to do this, and it seems to be valuable. Let's go ahead.
And now you said something profound again, in my opinion. And this is the whole topic that sometimes it's a little bit like, well, we can have all these great cases and use cases, but if the core business is not motivated for change and wanting to be a core driver on it, don't even try it. It's a little bit like, what's the roadmap to roll out this in the globe or whatever, and we, the typical kind of conversation, right? And then it's a little bit like, well, we should do it in this market because they really need it. And then business readiness, change readiness. This is a different ball game to really, okay, but where can we succeed? Because they are willing to do the hard yard to drive the change.
Exactly.
In my cynical, or not cynical, I mean, like my personal learning curve has been, that's the only parameter that really matters.
Yeah.
Do you agree on? Or?
I agree fully. I mean, that's has been my main criteria for selecting cases. Do we have a business organization that is willing to put up resources for this and commit to this? Otherwise it's pointless.
And it must have been a huge asset that you came from Accenture, where it was natural to create business value and people value, because we see organizations that hire innovation people or maybe researchers that don't necessarily choose those cases, and they choose cases that are
interesting,
fun or interesting.
Yeah. No, but that's been clear always. I mean, then that's what I'm saying to my team. If we can most on the market, most interesting cases, and we can deliver the perfect model for that case. But if no one uses it, it's waste.
Yeah. But just to move ahead a little bit. So you got into this role. The role expanded one step, adding the AI Center of Excellence or RPA. But I think it's shifted more. I mean, like this has been a journey now for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, after I think it was mid 2018 somewhere. I also got responsibility for our kind of analytics, so our kind of data platforms, data warehouse, data lake, analytical tools, an entire organization for that.
So now we're moving not only in the hardcore machine learning part, but actually the underlying data provisioning of different is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and also kind of the provision to all the kind of analytics teams across the organization, and ensuring that we have the right data in place. So that was kind of another change, which was quite interesting as well. And I mean, the idea was that, if we talk about machine learning and data, it's not that, they're quite closely correlated. If we need to deliver great machine learning models, we need great data.
You need great data, right?
Yeah.
So tricky.
And then I think one of my key things has been as well, it's more focusing, we have a challenge we need to solve in the organization. And then we need to ensure that we have the best way to solve it, regardless if it's an RPA, if it's a machine learning model, or if it's a dashboard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, the business doesn't really know what they need. we need to help them say, okay, for this specific problem, we think this is the best solution. Sometimes it's like, we want the machine learning model to do this. Well, that's actually, better done with, you can have a dashboard and
I mean, like the right
don't need
technology.
a machine learning model.
No.
We can take an easier path.
Yeah.
So it's always that, how can we also ensure that we have the right focus?
But to better understand a little bit, like, so what is how does the current organization work now that you are responsible for, and how does it sit, and what is the context of the larger SAS organization? So it's literally two questions, like what is your organization all about, and how does that fit, and what is the real...
Let's take the last step, which happened last fall.
Yeah, okay, one more step. Sorry,
one more
do that
step,
first.
Because then I also got responsible for our entire cloud infrastructure.
Yeah,
and
now we're talking.
our kind of DevOps practice, or the kind of centralized team for how we kind of drive development experience.
Yeah, so to understand what's the boundaries of that compared to the other IT, and so how does that organization fit into the larger context of IT and then the larger context of SAS?
Yeah, so basically my organization is kind of 4 parts right now. So I have the AI team focusing on, then we have an RPA team and we have a machine learning team.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a kind of data and analytics team, which is responsible for everything from kind of integration to data platforms to analytical tools.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have the DevOps organization, which is a lot focusing on kind of a development experience, and how can we build a kind of a new cloud platform for custom development.
Hardcore infrastructure as code, automated, the whole shaboom. The right way.
Yeah. Can I just pause here? How did you know how to lead this like palette of teams coming from Accenture?
I guess you learn over time. Yeah. I don't know if I have a good answer, but I think it's also been kind of, I think the mindset and the way we kind of discussed it internally, regarding, because a lot of this is kind of where we needed to drive change and, where we needed to kind of shift a lot. And I think, the idea right now is that, this is, my team is kind of supporting the more kind of business oriented IT teams in everything they need, from kind of infrastructure to data to, so that they can be even faster. So, that's the whole kind of idea behind it. And then we have kind of AI and analytics, which is kind of directly towards the business. So it's a bit of a mix.
We've done the same, right? So we work with insights data backbone. So one part is really data backbone in different ways, provisioning, and then you and no one really sees that. And then you move up in one leg, and this is the insight analytics or whatever. Yeah. So here you're meeting the customer on the real use case, and here you're meeting almost the analytical teams. Yeah, I was assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, something so it's like a mix. That's also the challenging part. We have stakeholders from everywhere. We have kind of internal IT stakeholders focusing. What do we need here? To actually deliver this kind of application or this service to kind of our analytical stakeholders. Says like, I need to add this data to this data mart, and then how do we prioritize that? So that's it's a lot of challenges, but I think it's interesting, and how can we kind of drive the same mentalities? Because I think the more and more I see it, I see there's a lot of kind of overlap or synergies between these. Especially on the kind of between kind of when we talk about development experience and kind of the machine learning practices. How can we? A lot of the kind of machine learning teams would benefit a lot by understanding, how do we do, what is the good development practice in traditional kind of application development or in web development, or, how can we bring that to kind of the machine learning teams?
But I think this is one of the key themes that you see on social media, LinkedIn, and papers being written, that we have learned domain-driven design or software engineering or microservices thinking over here to the left. I'm a software engineer. Yeah. And then we have people coming out of the BI, data warehouse application type environment where you're not schooled to do software engineering, you're schooled to use a business application, be it data warehousing and BI. So here we now start building, and then I'm a data scientist, by the way. So I'm more of a scientist. So I use my Jupyter notebook and try to put that in production. So here it's a little bit like they are really converging in terms of software engineering practices needs to move in to make, if data and AI becomes part of the production environment, they need to be equally robust like build software, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and equally, I mean, they need as much automation, and
of course, they need CI/CD as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. And they need, they shouldn't have to care about environments. They shouldn't have to care about, all of that. They should care about, building great models. If I'm a data scientist, I should care about building great models, not to understand, the environment or anything around it. So
this has been a pet discussion of me and Anders about the hybrid organization we'd call it, but to me it's like the central organization versus the.
Can I ask a question? Because I think that there is something that is a little bit more important here, because you're running right now AI, RPA, ML, data, DevOps, cloud. So what is the relationship with the IT department and the CIO? What do they do?
You're part of IT.
Just to unpack this, so we did like editorial piece a couple of years ago back when we were investigating, for example, does Google have a IT department? And yes, they have 4, right? But the purpose of them is not to lead digitalization, rather to support the company with the infrastructure and to make sure that everything is up and running. Then on the left, you have the data engineering, the analytics, the AI teams, and etc. that are responsible for delivering value from the advanced analytical capabilities in the organization. But this was discussed quite a lot in 2018, 17, 18, 19. That is going to be the role of the CDO, the Chief Data Officer. But in Nordics and in most of the countries, the CDO was not very well welcomed because it became like a competitor to the CIO. So my question, just unpacking this, because this is the right approach, because you're becoming tech company by this, because you have a center of excellence for data analytics, which is you.
I think so.
Right? And then the IT department becomes what needs to be, the support, the infrastructure, and making sure. So what is the relationship with the IT department?
I'm part of the IT department.
Yeah. So this is everything in the IT department.
Yeah. So my.
So it's not separately. No. This is a very important. Yeah.
Very important understanding.
Good. My boss is the CIO.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So your boss is, I think, very smart, right? Because he has understood.
She.
I didn't know that. I should have known that.
That's cool.
Yeah, but she has really understood that this topic, they all fit together somehow. Yeah. So this really tricky. Typically, you can find, we have someone is responsible for AI over here, and someone is responsible for the cloud environment over here, and someone is responsible for the data for the data warehouse over there, and it becomes very, very tricky because it's a value chain, right?
Yeah.
And so I think from a Swedish IT culture, if that's a word. I mean, like we don't really have like in America the CDO role. We have a couple, right?
We have around 20. Yeah,
we have around. I mean, like, but
it is a title, but we have plenty of them that are actually responsible for the entire.
Yeah, but I think how to solve it in the way that it fits in the Swedish companies. I kind of think this is a good model in one way.
I think we're also touching on a very, very important topic for Sweden, no matter what we call the title, and that is probably the relationship between the CEO and the CIO or CDO, and is that person measured on continuous value creation or just maintenance?
Yes, but it's even deeper than that, because the discussion at the beginning was how do we maximize the value of data, right?
Yeah.
And in order for us to measure the data, it needs to come into the financial books on the end of the year. So that means there is supposed to be one person that is responsible for the data in the organization. Either that is called like value realization, monetization, utilization, whatever it is going to be. The value of it needs to be on the books. So if that is the case, there needs to be a person who is responsible for that. No matter if that is in IT or if that is from a separate point of view. But then it comes the complexity. Who owns the budget for the data? right? Because if it comes from right now, everything goes to IT, right? It's 5% of the entire. It doesn't have to. It doesn't matter how big it is. So the main question is: do we need to have like a person that is responsible for the data as a separate unit, or it needs to be in the IT? Because if the IT, then IT is leading the digitalization.
But I think it's a mix. Honestly, I think
Yes.
I think it's good to think about kind of the single source of truth, that we need to have kind of one view of the data. I'm not myself too concerned about how the organizational structure looks like in different companies. I think as long as kind of we achieve the goals we want to achieve, and I think you can achieve that in many different ways. What I hope for myself is that we, I think all of the companies need to start thinking about more kind of how can we work in more matrix structures, focusing on kind of value delivery and kind of selecting the right talent in teams to deliver on a specific item, or to, set the KPI, we need to deliver this business value. And then it's, we have people from, wherever in the organization to do that. And I think that's the way forward. We can have data engineers from a kind of a central data engineering capability, which has one platform and a standard way to do it, but combined with kind of software developers, combined with kind of business experts, some type of product owner, everyone who...
I think this is super insightful, because I think there's a big key in transitioning from traditional organizational chart to more of a system architecture to thinking when you design organizations, where every nodes needs to be able to talk to each other, going back to the question of protocols that are actually functioning, where every device can communicate.
Yeah. But and here we talked about this in Data Innovation Summit, and in my opening remark I talked about how we organize around the data AI value chains, literally being part of the core business value chain. And now in Scania, I want to compare. So we are going more and more to a separation between IT for infra platform versus domain teams. So literally, I'm responsible to build up a domain operation with data engineers, integration and microservices engineers, together with machine learning and advanced analytics within one of the core domains within Scania, which is the loan and leasing and finance and insurance stuff, right? But the way we are doing it now is I'm doing it in super tight collaboration with the shout out to Thomas Dersjö and Staffan Wildelin in one of the core IT departments, which is heading up sort of data analytics, integration and all that. So it means more or less that we are coming to a model where we are not trying to build our own empire in a silo, but we want to be a domain on the Scania data platform strategy. Yeah. And we have integration platform strategy, API strategy platform, and then, data mesh and big data. So the whole topic becomes more of a federated governance, where the role of the platform team is different to the domain teams. And for me, that becomes sort of, we had Anders Nyman here, who is a head of search or engineering manager of search in Spotify. And I think that's a little bit, we're going for the feature of what's the value chain, who understands the business. Because as long as we have the central team with one team with data engineers that should cover everything from making autonomous vehicles to insurance, credit automation, KM, it's too broad, right? Yeah. So is that what you're saying, that we need to go, this matrix is sort of, we have the technology platform stability and we have the value stream view of the services we're providing. Is that what
back on the matrix? I think it was very interesting actually. So I might, matrix structure, what did you mean by that?
No, I meant, we need to, instead of kind of organizing ourselves around, a specific topic, or, we organize ourselves in the business, we organize ourselves in IT, and we actually we have in IT now, which I think is, one step forward to that. We started to actually, my peers in my leadership team, they're actually organized according to value streams in the business.
And what is a value stream for SES?
It could be kind of discover and book.
Okay. So a very, very core part of the customer journey.
Yeah, order and pay,
Yeah.
It's I mean, the core parts of the customer journey, or kind of on the more operational side, where it might be kind of ground operations,
fuel planning.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to that, and how do we organize ourselves around that?
So when you say value stream, it's very closely related to the business value or the business delivery.
Yeah.
So it's not a data value stream. It's a business hardcore business view.
And what's the ratio of you guys going to the different value stream owners and suggesting things, and them coming to you and saying, we're going to do new things? What are your input?
But I mean, right now it's in a mix. I mean, we created this organization during COVID, and I guess we can come back to, SAS during COVID, which has been an interesting journey. But I mean, in the quick runs, we had to reduce 35% of the staff.
Wow.
Due to COVID.
Wow.
And then we realized, okay, we can't do this by just using kind of
cheese grater,
cutting over here. So we need to reorganize to be able to do this. And then we decided, so let's reorganize it into value streams and focus on actually how do we create the value. We tried to kind of ensure that the teams are kind of end-to-end responsibility, pushing more responsibilities to the teams, removing centralized functions like PMO, like, all of that. So we don't have that anymore.
Wow.
We don't have a centralized EA function. We don't have,
but it's interesting because in order for you to go in this direction, the whole company needs to go in this direction.
Yeah, which hasn't really happened yet, which is a challenge of that, and that's,
you're in the transition.
We're in the transition. But that, needs to happen. And coming back to kind of the matrix structure, which you asked about, I think it's, for me, it's about, we need to have a way to ensure that we can kind of keep the competences kind of intact and kind of upskill the competences while still kind of focusing the people on the value and, be measured on the value, and we can organize these competences into value streams.
So what does that mean? Does it mean that some of your data engineers that come from your different teams are sort of placed out in the different domain team or value stream teams, or how does it function in practice?
I mean, it doesn't really function today, but I think that's kind of where we want to go.
That is the mission. Yeah.
That's the mission. So we're starting right now. I mean, we're in the start of this kind of journey, because it's also after COVID, we decided, okay, we need to invest even more now. And we need to ramp up and scale this.
Oh, this is so fun, because we are doing the same at Scania in different ways. And one of the interesting angles is the tech stack or architecture supporting the domain-driven value streams? Because that becomes an architectural topic very soon.
Yeah. Not really.
Interesting.
No, but that's what we're working with as well. There's a lot of things going on in parallel. And I mean, we're not moving right now towards an organization which is the matrix structure, but I think, that's the future way to go. I mean, how can we ensure that we both, say kind of software engineers as a talent, if we divide them up too much into different teams and into different value streams, and they have no connection to each other,
then the platform stability is lost.
Yeah, and everyone is doing their own thing.
Siloed.
We come up with a technology landscape that is super scattered. It's extremely difficult for us to kind of move people around if we need to kind of accelerate or decelerate certain areas. But if we kind of manage to kind of keep them together and ensure we can upskill them, we can provide them a good kind of career opportunities, then we, can be more flexible and kind of adjust over time.
So is it more like a center of excellence, and then you are catering the organization with all of their needs, right? Or
yeah, I mean, I think there's different ways to do it, and which lines are you reporting to, and I think either you go for kind of the capability line where you say, look, okay, if I'm responsible for all the data engineers in the company, and my responsibility is to ensure that we hire the best talent, we train them. We keep them skilled. We ensure that they have a good career path within that. They can progress within kind of their role, and then we can allocate them to different teams. Or if we have kind of the team structure steering, and then create this kind of more kind of virtual center of excellences across.
Exactly.
I think those are the two different models, but yeah.
And this whole topic, how you understand capability so you can build consistency in a platform of platforms, different parts of the technology stack versus speed and autonomy in the team, right? And you're always, there's conflicting interests here, and you need to sort of federate to govern both in some ways. I mean, like either way, if you go all team, you need to federate so they, as a community, learn from each other. And if you go competence or capability, you put them out, and you still need to. So it's a different steering. It's a federated model, in my opinion. Yeah. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different steering, and also I think all the traditional organizations struggle with that. Also because when it comes to everything from kind of HR to performance management, and how will that work? If I'm working within this value stream, kind of 80% of my time, but my manager is working over here, how will that work? So it's all, there's a lot of kind of people questions to solve as well. I mean, if we're moving into these models, which is more difficult because then your line manager might not be the one that you report to on a daily basis. And how do we handle that?
Because what you're saying now, and I think you said it before, that we need to get also into organization that fits architecture or vice versa. So it's a little bit like we have a sort of some sort of star schema here of the problem of the ultimate organization, and it kind of looks more modular, domain value stream driven. And that means we need to have architecture that fits that. We need to have governance that fits that. We need to have budget and mandates on how we split our resources that fits that. We need to have competence development and career path. So I think if you really nail down that we want to go in this direction, you need to go 360 around the problem to make that work.
And I want to bridge that as well, because I think Daniel is an excellent example that I'm amazed of, that you have super deep knowledge in business, IT requirements, framework, and a lot of areas. But what amazes me most is that you understand people and what people need to grow within this framework. And I think that kind of leadership
is needed.
Is probably the future, because we come from a world where leaders were generalists and just said, okay, you're going to do this and within this framework, but to actually understand how people grow.
But this leadership is very different, because in a Tayloristic leadership, if I'm going all the way down to the one end of the spectrum, you're kind of really competent in what you do, selling something, building something, whatever. And basically IT is over here, right? And now leadership needs to be a way more T-shaped, we talk about, right? So you need,
or even X.
I don't know, even X, but I kind of believe in the T-shape, that you're grounded somewhere. A lot of leaders need to be grounded somewhere, depending on where they are in the organization, but they need to have a way different experience of the holistic approach. And also it means a completely different leadership, that before I was leader for my KPI in my silo, where I had a team that was very homogeneous, and then I could lead in one way. But now in the one hand side, I need to lead a cross-functional team. So I'm not the expert in 9 out of the 10 roles. And ultimately, if I want to harvest and scale, I need to be more of a salesman of my stuff, and I need to be a harvester of all the good stuff everybody else is doing. So instead of having leadership very sort of, I focus on my KPI and my siloed focus, you almost need to be more focused on maneuvering, and then the autonomous team is doing the work, and you have a different role. This is a different role.
And get the respect, and that's where the deep knowledge comes in. Now, I just want to. I'm completely amazed. But
I think if we're truly talking about becoming kind of digital companies and tech companies, and I think, probably Scania talks about that. I can guess, we're talking about that, but I think it's also, it's a major transformation for the people in the organization. And also to understand, if we go into the agile teams and the agile, structures, and we want autonomous teams, the leader's main role should be to remove barriers for the teams.
Yeah, if you talk servant leadership and all that. Yeah. But maybe this is also a maturity curve, that in the first instance, we say digital, and we need to have digital transformation. And the knee-jerk reaction is that this is a technical transformation. This is something with tech. So, it does, but ultimately to make that happen, which is only enabler, it's all about the people. It's all about the governance. It's all about the orchestration of our work and our mandates. And if you get that right, they will sort the tech out. Yeah. Do you agree with that? I mean, it's easy to leave the digital transformation in sort of a tech. We need to, and then we, look at how our budgets are spent. We're spending a lot of money on the data and the tech, but ultimately 50% of the problem is something else.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I think that's the biggest lack of understanding in companies today. And that is when the internet rolled around, most companies just put a digital layer on the existing way of running companies. But now what you're talking about is running companies completely differently.
Yeah.
Whereas most are still just, okay, we want to make our current way of doing things more efficient.
Oh, we want to move it to another channel, a digital channel. But it's an analog underlying fundamental operating model.
Yes.
So I would like to take another approach just to spice up the thing, because that is I'm the catalyst in this thing. You mentioned that the former leaders were generalists. I don't think that they were generalists. If you were a salesperson, you got promoted to be a sales director. That doesn't mean that you are basically a generalist. You're just basically a sales director. You know how to sell. Do you know how to manage people? Discussable. Maybe you are. Maybe it's a skill that you need to educate. So I don't think that people were generalists. They were specific. I also believe me and Henrik, we started this game of chess 2015 in Vattenfall, one of the small rooms there. And we were discussing basically, at that point of time, there was a lot of discussion about, if you remember, so at the beginning it was a corporate control, and then it was BI, and then it was business analytics. And all of them, they had like there was this, what is called, strategy, which was called Business Intelligence Center of Excellence. And then it was called Business Analytics Center of Excellence. And then it was Data Science Center of Excellence. And now it's AI Center of Excellence as well. The idea was that either you basically make a centralized or you make a hybrid approach where you have basically ambassadors in different domains. So you have like people that are 50% or 20% working within the sales function, or let's say 80% working in a sales function and 20% working within domain center of excellence. Okay. And unfortunately, all of these strategies failed. Every single one of them.
You think?
Yes, absolutely. They didn't exist. You had actually one in SAS. It was run by doesn't matter. We take this in after work. But it was not that it didn't fail. It was just because the approach was it was a hypothesis that it will work. You take people from different departments. They're going to be the ambassadors. They're going to implement everything there. Didn't work. You mentioned as well that this is a technology change. You forgot about the skill set. It's not about the people. It's about the skill set. But you think that in Google, when you have, or you mentioned Spotify, right? They have the search engine. That is a domain. It's the sales function. It's the marketing function. It's the R&D, and etc. Right? In that team, they have a data engineer, probably, analyst, and maybe a visualization
guy. They have
guys.
service designers. They have psychologists. They have everything.
Exactly. So that means that. So the curveball that I'm trying to throw here is that these tech companies are working on a product or a function type of a base. That means that the skill set, it is in the function. So if that is a search, maybe that in SaaS is the HR function.
Yeah,
right?
but you need to go all the way around here, because I think to some degree here, when we talked about Center of Excellence's, version 1.0, we did that on top of the analog governance and organization.
True.
And we were trying to fit data and find the ways to fit data into the old dogma. And I think we were not ready in 2017 to really talk about hardcore understanding value streams and all that. And I think a lot of stuff has happened. Not only, I think it's many drivers here. Data, cloud, everything is used. So many things are happening that basically the forces are now aligning that, look, we can't work at the same way. And what is really interesting is that what does it take for an old company that's been really successful for 100 years to truly change their operating model?
I think two things, and I think you're a great example of this. I think you can start a center of excellence or a lab or whatever, but the reason to why the company is doing it, is that because is it an excuse not to change, or is it actually value creation? And is that lab based on what you do or why you do it, going back to your value streams, which are centered around the why, not the what?
Okay, good. So just to clarify, I'm not against it. I'm not pro about it. The question is, do we believe that in the future these capabilities are going to be function based, or they're going to be in a center of excellence, serving and catering all the organizations? That was my actually curveball here.
I think, but that's what I come back to. I think it's the matrix structures. I think if you talk about Spotify or if you talk about Klarna and everyone, they have extremely clear kind of path if you're an engineer. Even if you belong to Spotify, if you belong to Search, if you're a software engineer, you have a clear kind of career path. You have clear kind of communities and governance around that. And, you have your, community across the different value streams. And I think that's kind of what's most challenging in the traditional companies, is that they're so used to the traditional hierarchy structure, which makes this extremely difficult. Because a lot of people then, it's very uncomfortable. But I mean, when I was at Accenture, I think I reported into 3 different dimensions. So then you're used to that. I mean, you had your project manager, you had your kind of capability lead, and then you had your kind of industry, and then you.
But so we can unpack what we mean with the matrix here. Are we in some? I mean, the basic matrix is that you have a discipline of your core competence. I'm a data engineer. I love to do data engineering stuff, and I'm world class in Kafka or whatever I'm doing. And then the other dimension is for what purpose? I'm doing credit automation, or I'm doing fuel planning. Is that what we? That's the fundamental.
But I want to stretch that.
Okay,
beyond fuel planning, they need to understand why for the product or for the value.
But that's true. That's true. But what I'm saying is that one dimension. So basically, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about the data value chain, a data and AI value chain, and within that value chain, ultimately, you need to know the value you're creating for your customers, and if you want to stretch that, for your customer. This is the one dimension of value. Now, in order to produce value, that is where data, AI, software as at the core of that delivery, we will need a team that understands the core dimension of that domain versus data engineering versus machine learning engineering versus UX or service design or whatever. So you have now a cross-functional team at the core of that value chain. And within then per se in the cross-functional team, we're all in a cross-functional team working towards the same value, but I have a discipline that I'm here to contribute with. Isn't that the core matrix?
Yeah. And I mean, that's my whole idea, at least.
I like it.
And, because we can have the disciplines, we're great at, say, data engineering. And we're great at data engineering, and we work a lot kind of in the same way. We try to, facilitate that so that we don't get this kind of everyone doing their own thing. But then also, organize that into kind of value streams, which is kind of across the organization. It's not only within technology. It's also the business leaders. It's everyone and that kind of value stream team or teams should have, a clear business KPI that they're measured on. Why is it that we're delivering this?
And this is the core, right? So even if I'm a data engineer or I'm a service designer, I need to understand what are we trying to achieve? That's what you're saying, right?
No, yeah.
And this is a problem sometimes when we have different agendas, different KPIs, because we have business over here and we have, classical IT demand, IT supply. I mean, like that falls apart, right? Because sometimes you have KPIs which are very much driven from another agenda, FTE in IT, or, run spend, lowering run spend of our IT systems. That becomes a pseudo. But if you keep it all within the value stream, I think this is key, right?
Yeah, but I think it's difficult to achieve, But I think that's
that's what
it's
we're
also
going
that
for.
if we want to set up these cross-functional teams, it's also being that everyone should be able to contribute to the how. Maybe the leader set the what. This is what we should achieve. But then it's the entire team. Everyone, if we have kind of digital sales specialists or kind of marketeers or whatever skills we have in the team, but everyone can contribute. I believe a data engineer might okay, I know we have this data that we can combine with that. Probably someone in today, someone in marketing doesn't know, and then they come with other things that might be very valuable, but they might take longer. Sometimes it's the low-hanging fruit we are missing today.
But let's. I want to try a hypothesis here. We said like the first generation of Center of Excellence had a hard time sort of succeeding, right? I propose to you that it is not that at all, but it's because you will need to have whatever you want to call it as a Center of Excellence for data engineering. You will need to have a discipline hub, or discipline community, how we excel our best practices in data engineering in general, that this discipline needs to come together. And then, of course, you need to have the other angle of the core domain or the core value you're in. So I propose that, I don't think the Center of Excellence idea is dead. It's understanding it from the discipline versus the cross-functional team in the value stream.
Okay. I can concur with that. There is another factor that actually helped in diminishing the value of all of these BICCs, business analytics. After that, everything happened so rapidly. So you prepared the Center of Excellence in 2012 for BI to service the finance, because that is what it was servicing at that point of time. Marketing was not actually even a part of the BI because they run their own things. They had everything in Google Analytics. Then in 2014-15, we get like the rise of big data. Everybody is talking about Ubers and everything is going to, perish. And suddenly we have business analytics. Now we need to serve the entire organization with analytic capabilities for everything from R&D to marketing to sales to finance. So the capabilities of that person, or let's say the purpose of the BI Center of Excellence, diminished in 2-3 years, no matter if you basically succeeded with that or not. And then we have 2015, rapidly now we are going to 2018. People are going to the World Economic Forum. Everybody starts buzzing about machine learning. Suddenly there is a data science center of excellence. What is that? It's a different type of capability. So what you did with business analytics is not longer feasible, is not longer there. So I think that the technology is changing so rapidly and we are following the trend so rapidly that is actually confusing, and it's really hard for all of these people that have put so much effort and deliver it to actually follow that, because it's you are running right now a couple of things and etc. right? And we still, let's say that you have a machine learning model that you need to put in production, and it's going to be in the production in 6 to 7 months. But in 6 to 7 months, the business factors, macro perspectives have already changed. So we are moving to a next business objective.
But isn't that one of the core reasons for doing what you are doing, to continuously increase your capability to see patterns?
Yes.
Yeah. So. And I think a little bit, maybe why it wasn't working generation 1.0 in 2015 was that this whole matrix of value stream thinking and embedding engineers was not really there. I mean, like the first attempts of describing this chief data office, it looks like an ivory tower to me. Like I'm going to sit over here with having my center of excellence, and you're going to flip, fluffy remarks to me, and I'm going to provide value to you. Or even worse, we will sit in our ivory tower and give me all the data, and then I will provide magic to the domain experts without knowing your processes. I mean, like that is to me why which failed the first time. If we understand that, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater here. You need your discipline. You need your domain. You need a home for your data engineers. You need your home for your data scientists in terms of expanding their understanding for their core role. but then it needs to be applied, and the applied part is the part of the matrix. So if you don't get the organization to buy into that, but you have this sort of flipping over the fence, it will never work. So I think that's the profound learning that is coming. You are trying to do it. We are trying to do it. Spotify and these guys, they figured that out a couple of years ago, to be honest.
But I think, I mean, no one is perfect here. I don't think even the giants that we're talking about is perfect here. No. And I think, it's not an easy task to solve. It is difficult. And how do we merge this?
Yeah.
It's...
And because we are, I mean, like I always say, this is way harder for the legacy analog enterprise, because we need to contend with a domain which is not data native. I mean, like we are engineers in nuclear, or we are engineers in building combustion engines. So here we have two different cultures that needs to merge.
Yes.
My joke is always
the key.
My joke is always, if you try to do AI in medical, we have one guy speaking Latin and another guy speaking Python. Good luck with that.
Yeah, or even just one guy speaking foot and the other guy speaking ear, because we're still educating. Because I want to get your perspective of a bottleneck that I'm seeing, and that is, you're obviously educated at Accenture in learning. Like, you've got to work on different industries, learn to see different perspectives, but we still educate all our kids to become a title, and we educate in a certain way across all our education system. And then when people are adults and get into industry, then we start talking about people need to continuously learn and evolve. Can the companies take that sole responsibility of continuous learning, or do we need to change our entire system?
Oh, good question.
Okay, so now let's move into the bigger pictures questions.
That's a tough
start here.
question. But,
good one.
No, I think to some point, I think it's accurate. I mean, we need to ensure that everyone needs to continuously learn. Otherwise, especially right now, I mean, things are changing so rapidly. So it's, you can't expect to kind of do the same thing 40 years in a row.
But your core question, can we put that responsibility solely on the corporates or the organizations, like if it's in public sector, or what's the alternative?
I mean, just the other week, there was a big conference called The Future of Democracy, and the principal of Stockholm School of Economics referenced that most of the rest of the world have majors and minors on a higher level education, whereas in Sweden, we focus on one area alone. And having those two perspectives makes a huge difference. Whereas in engineers and developers, you have a more maybe natural curiosity for continuous change because the field is so new. But in other fields, it becomes harder in the organization because people tend to stick to their professional identity. And what can schools and education system or society make changes to support industry better?
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very interesting. I think when I also kind of from my Accenture days, we went to this kind of strategy college in Chicago, and then all the analysts from across the world was there, and you talk to the people from the kind of the UK. It's like, what did you study? Well, I majored in arts, and and then it was like everyone was kind of hired into the kind of consulting firms, or kind of either studying kind of engineering or, and we're studying for 5 years, engineering or economics. And everyone was studying for 5 years, doing their masters. And there they were like, no, I did my bachelor's in arts, and now I'm here.
Oh, that's cool. When you hire and look for people, is academic titles an important criteria?
No, not specifically, I would say. But I think, the challenge we have, I mean, now I'm being open and honest, I think the challenge we have is that, SAS comes from a highly outsourced. We had a lot of kind of financial troubles. Also, I mean, long before COVID, we were on the verge of kind of extinction in 2012. So then it was a large kind of outsourcing. We tried to,
CGI or something like this.
What?
Yeah, CGI or some other companies.
Some other companies.
Yeah.
And then we had a known company called kind of SAS Data, I think it was called, with 1,000 employees that was sold.
Shared service.
Yeah. And then, right now we're kind of in a phase that, we have started to kind of see that, okay, we need to hire this competence right now.
Why do you think you need to hire them? I fully agree with that, but what's the...
the main reason is because we see that we're kind of vulnerable in that, we don't have the talent and also the speed. If we have our own developers, and where we have our own developers, we can see you can achieve a much higher speed. And the small things are easier to fix. And, we can actually focus on kind of the value creation, rather than talking about, what's in this contract, what's not in this contract.
Exactly.
Which is not that fun. But I think that's also a challenge, coming back to your question regarding recruiting, is that, if we don't recruit that much straight from university or straight from schools, because right now we don't have that many experienced people. And I think if we want to go to the route where we want to go to the route where we hire more directly from the schools, but then we need more senior people on board to actually work with them and train them.
So you have a step 1 and step 2.
Say if I would be a kind of a manager without any developers right now. I mean, the first developer I hire, it's difficult for me to hire someone straight from school.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not a developer myself, how will I ensure that they have something valuable to do? And I think that goes back to all the skills. Also when we have recruited, that's even more experience. If we had recruited data scientists out in the organization, that's great. We're going to hire a data scientist. They're going to do great stuff for us. But then we have no one to actually steer them and, actually understand what the data scientist does. Yeah. It's very difficult.
Is that also part of a bigger mental transition for an organization to go from what you do to why you do it? If you compare Tesla to Volkswagen, for instance, Volkswagen see themselves as a car company, whereas Tesla see themselves much as a, tech digital first company. I guess if you would ask the management as SAS, the natural response would be, we're an airline company, but maybe it's a transition to getting people from point A to B in a fantastic way company.
Mm-hmm. It's a tech company.
I want to...
So, because we are on 1 and 30 minutes, usually this question comes around like 30th minute and etc. We have been talking quite a lot about Accenture and you moving to SAS, but we never actually presented what is SAS.
True.
And what SAS and AI has to do together. What are you guys doing there?
No, but I think, I don't know which audience we have right now, but SAS, I think we're one of the largest carriers in the Nordics. Airlines. Before the pandemic, I'm going to talk numbers before the pandemic because the numbers during the pandemic is not as fun. We had kind of 30 million passengers per year, roughly flying to kind of 300 destinations, I think. And we have around 100 aircraft. So that's kind of the size of SAS. And if you come back to your question regarding AI, I think...
Or data in general, right?
Data in general.
Analytics, it doesn't have to be AI, right? Because you're doing RPA as well.
No, I think, right now we're doing kind of across the company in different areas. I think some of this has been quite highlighted in, I think we were at the Build conference at Microsoft, talking about, of course, then it was after COVID, so it's not a physical conference. But then, we did fraud scoring for Eurobonus. So trying to identify fraudulent patterns for claiming your bonus points, which is interesting kind of across the Star Alliance. So that was kind of that
is actually cool. I was looking at the different case studies that could potentially pop up in this discussion, and fraud detection, I have not marked it, and it's so obvious one, right?
Yeah. No, fraud detection has been one. Another one I think is very kind of cool from both kind of a sustainability angle and from a cost angle is that we've been looking at kind of fresh food optimization. So how much fresh food should we bring on each aircraft? Cool. The model we have right now, I think we reduced the waste with 60%. roughly.
That's a good one. That's a good KPI.
Yeah, that's a good KPI, and it's both from kind of
many angles.
Yeah, it's from many angles. So I think it's
a great cost. As
cost,
well, right?
sustainability, waste.
Yeah,
that's the other reason I don't get my extra meal.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can order.
Actually, I think it was only like 1% outages of meals increased, something like that. But still, and then recently we've been looking at water on the aircrafts.
That's a sensitive topic, right?
No, but also, when we fly long haul, how much water should we actually carry on board? Because we thought that we often landed with kind of 50% water left. Every weight on the aircraft, we use more fuel as the aircraft weighs more. So it's actually, if we manage to count the water levels on the aircraft, we can reduce fuel. And as you know, I don't know if you know that, but can you guess, in 2019, how many % of our total costs were fuel?
Oh, I think
we had roughly 40 billion revenue.
30%?
50?
No.
For no, you have staff costs and all that.
30 for sure.
30?
No.
Almost 25%.
25%.
So we had roughly 10 billion.
That is a lot.
That's a lot.
So I think you said, like, if we can really tackle the fuel cost, that's a good business case.
Yeah, it is. And that's also why, some of these, it might sound, we're going to analyze, how much water should we bring on all our intercontinental flights. But actually, it might reduce.
If you have 25% of 40 billion, and then you reduce that with 2%, that's a good business case.
The water doesn't reduce it 2%, but it's,
But maybe that's how you compound it up. How you need to do it in all different angles.
Yeah, we do.
Analyzing what drives weight and what drives fuel.
Yeah. And then other machine learning topics, we have, it's a lot, on the customer side, the traditional kind of customer segmentations,
customer loyalty,
the destination scoring, which type of destinations do we believe you want to travel to? We also do kind of purpose of travel. Trying to assess why you want to travel. Is it business or is it leisure, or, a lot of those models.
And I need to ask you a very a question that is sort of with an angle. We together in Deract, we work with Robert Luciani, who works a lot with optimization, the traveling salesman problem. So how much work have you done on sort of route optimization or like crew optimization and all that, the whole planning of the logistics of everything to optimize, these 100 planes and these 100 crews or sort of thing?
If we talk from my team, we haven't done that much. There's also, those are extremely complex problems.
Yes, that's the point.
And we use a lot of industry solutions to actually do that today.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very interesting area, going forward as well. But that's, also coming back to, said a long time ago, regarding also, where is the business ready?
Yeah.
To actually look at this. And also I think, if we're going to talk about kind of planning and scheduling, and I think for me, my goal now is that we can start up together with our OCC.
OCC is? The
Operational Control Center.
To work with them, right?
Yeah, and they're responsible for everything for 72 hours before the flight until, the flight lands.
So I have a topic for you for after work.
Yeah.
This is super cool stuff.
Shout out to Robert. How can we kind of automate that, and how can we, improve that even more in the decisions we need to take? Say we have an aircraft on ground because we have an engine failure.
Yeah.
So which, what should we do? The decision making.
Next best action for this problem.
What's the next best action? It's not that simple.
No.
When taking in consideration crew, aircrafts, passengers,
But
slot times.
When you buy planes, I know you bought new planes recently.
Do they buy them? Do you lease them or you buy them?
Well, whatever.
It's a mix.
Let's just use colloquial. Are every vendor, I guess there are not 100 different providers of airplanes, but are they at the same level of data readiness, or is it someone ahead of the other?
I think they're quite similar. I think also when you take into consideration that we normally keep an airplane for roughly 20 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, the new aircraft we buy, sometimes I call it's like a server with wings.
Yeah.
I think the new kind of A350s, I think they generate kind of 50 gigs of data for an intercont flight. So we have quite...
And you, going back from the general to the nerdy, do you transfer all the data or do you transfer the predictions?
We don't transfer all the data. And that's another topic we're discussing, what should we transfer, what shouldn't we transfer?
Yeah.
And what should we keep, what shouldn't we keep?
Do they have deployment capability of models on the planes?
Good question, actually. I doubt
analytics
it.
on edge.
No, it's, I mean, also, yes. I mean...
I like it.
The airline industry is highly regulated.
Yeah.
What you can and what you can't do on an aircraft is, it's extremely complex, and everything needs to be approved by different authorities, and what we can and can't do, and also with aircraft manufacturers, it's we can't really do that much onto the aircraft.
But let's go down this rabbit hole. I need to humor Anders Arpteg. He will be really mad with me if I don't ask any nerdy question at all.
Yeah, he will be.
He will be really upset.
Gran Canaria sitting there this is not going good.
So this is not going good. No. So could we talk a little about your tech stack? What's the fundamental tech stack or strategy around your tech stack that you are working on right now?
In which part?
Yeah, let's unpack it. Right, I like it. Let's start with the cloud.
Yeah, no,
and maybe build it up.
No, I mean, right now we have a lot of, we're quite focused on Azure. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the main reason is that I think we're one of the few companies, actually, I think we have 98% of our business applications in the cloud. Mm-hmm. So we basically don't have any on-prem footprint anymore.
That's super cool, by the way.
So I mean, we've done a great job in transitioning that, and it's also a strategic reason for that, because we didn't own any data centers before they did. So in order for us, and we're heavily outsourced, and so also to be able to kind of not having to kind of do a migration if we also switch providers, or if we need to switch data center providers, it's actually better to be in the cloud.
Yeah,
because it's then of course it might be a lock-in effect as well. But I mean, Azure is the base today. And then we use, on the data side, it's a lot of kind of the Azure native tools. Right
so now. Is a basic strategy to try for the data engineers to basically, let's see how far we can go with the Azure native. I mean, like Kubernetes on Azure or whatever, Docker's on. Or is that the core thinking to use the native services as far?
It has been, and I mean that's also something we're discussing right now. In what to what extent should we use the native services versus kind of open source and others?
Yeah,
to become more flexible, and what should we have a multi-cloud strategy, or should we go multi-cloud? I mean that's another discussion topic that's ongoing. But I think the most important part is how do we create the value from it?
Yeah.
We can discuss technology in all forever, and everyone will have the different opinions.
Exactly.
And I think since we have a strong collaboration with Microsoft, I think it has served us well. We've gotten great support, honestly, to actually to create this and how we set it up and how we work. When I started the first machine learning projects. I'm not a developer from the beginning. I brought in some data scientists as consultants. I had no idea what we were doing. But, then we had, great support from our vendors and, okay, this is what you need to set up and this is kind of how you do it. And then, started to learn from there.
Yeah.
And I think,
the phase of innovation. You start and you see where you get, and then you learn something, and then go back and you.
I think that's been my approach the whole time since we started this like the AI journey within SAS from a kind of a technology perspective. It's been like, okay, maybe I always try to only say, okay, we want to build a spaceship. We want to have everything perfect. That's what we always do.
Yeah.
But then I say, but right now we might know that we need a spaceship, but we don't need to understand exactly how the cockpit will look right now.
Yeah.
We probably need an engine first. So let's start there. And then we can, figure out the rest as we go and when we need it. Because, back a few years back, people started like, oh, how will you do multi-model management? You have consultants calling you and how will you do that? It's like, that's not my problem right now. So I don't need a solution. And I think, when I need the solution, it will probably look a lot different than it looks today.
Yeah.
But this is interesting because the whole tech stack topic, you can get into these pseudo discussions on platform or re-platforming. So all of a sudden we need to do this major technology shift and we need to spend 5 years to use fixed infra, or we need to, you can hear it in data, by the way, we need to do this data governance project for 5 years to clean up my data. And the really going best practice, I think, is in some ways think big or have some general strategies, but then start small and scale and just in time lit up your platform, right? That's what you're saying in a way.
Exactly.
So,
and I think, that's the way to go.
Because otherwise you're wasting money, right? In used infra that you don't need, that you haven't used.
Yeah, but I think the same is, any technology piece we do, right? If we take it to a big scope, that goes for machine learning as well. You talked about scheduling earlier. If I say now, let's start a project where we will do the entire scheduling using AI. And we started now. Okay, we can deliver in 2 years.
No, start in one corner of the problem.
Yeah, so it's like the same thing there. If I wanted to go with OCC, I was like, let's start with building a great delay prediction.
Very concrete.
Yeah, and then, if we manage to do that, we can build on the next steps.
But I think this is quite important because this is one of these misconceptions, right? Or this, we call it the data AI, the dilemma that what you need to work on the one use case at a time perspective because it's in the ones and zeros of that use case. And then you have the other side of the spectrum. We need to build a perfect platform and we need to have it synergized and scale and all that. The problem is like if you do every single use case in isolation and big build fragmentation, that's a problem. Yeah. But if you only talk about replatforming and enterprise architecture, you get nowhere.
Yeah.
And you get, so
there is a middle ground.
Yeah. What is that? How would you define the middle ground?
I would define it as just those low hanging fruits that create quick value. Find the commonalities and the requirements for that.
And I would also say, building on, because we want to build a kind of platform in the end that we can, enable everyone to be automated. I have this vision for my, for my development experience team is that, we should have a CLI where they can basically go in and like, I want to create, it could be, I want to create a machine learning model. And they just click enter, and then the environment is spin up for them. The first pipelines is there. Everything is ready for them. That's the kind of the vision.
No code AI, right?
Yeah. But then they get the first deployment for the Python scripts. They get the data connectors. And then they can start writing the Python code or whatever they want to write.
This is true, the infrastructure code, that when you want to go here, this is why you're going into the next generation cloud setup now.
Yeah,
because you try to automate things as far as possible from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a mindset shift from craftsmanship to factory. That basically, this is Lale's pet peeve, by the way, the Google is so far ahead on factory thinking. And this is what you're talking about. So I don't think it's like it's for the real data scientists or data engineers. They should be, there's a difference to work on the infra, to have infra's code that someone spins up. And then you have other data engineers who works on the real problem. It's not like what you're saying necessarily goes to the business people, but it's the data scientists working on the domain problem. They should have smooth in terms of infra.
Yeah, but they should have smooth in terms of, not just infra, it's kind of the tooling around it. And, if you talk about production, it's logging, it's,
it's so much,
it's everything around it.
So I meant that with infra.
And, building the platform for me is not that, I don't think we will have that in the first launch. Exactly. I think we need to build that together with the use cases we do. And also to see, can we have backlog items on the teams to, okay, we need to focus on this right now and contribute it back to the rest of the organization.
I think that
Go first.
So I have to come back to my point because I think this is a little bit interesting here. So everybody's talking about value, right? But in the same time, what you see that is happening in enterprises right now, everybody is building that mothership without actually knowing the use cases. You said like start with the use cases, right? So if you start with the use cases and you said like data, what do you need? You need data. Okay, so what do you need as a data? You need a data engineer, maybe the data scientist in a sales, right? So you take like one project at a time. You build a use case. Now we have second use case, third use case, fourth use case, sixth use case. Oh, now we need to build the organization because now we're scaling. That I can understand. But having organizations first to think about like the mothership, and then the use cases. In the future, we might have this and this and this. For me, it's a little bit like, it's challenging. It doesn't look right.
No, but this is really challenging because if you go.
But you see my point. You're talking about like we are going to build a center of excellence, but you are in the same time talking about building use cases. Why don't we start from the use cases, and then when you need to build a center of excellence, then you build it. Why do we need to build first a center of excellence without even knowing which capabilities you will need in a different use case?
Sure, but I guess you need, in order to not only focus on the immediate value creation, because you need those, I don't know, moonshot, but at least a little bit.
Who is doing moonshot from the enterprises?
But at least more visionary to actually put requirements on future scalability. You need to create that freedom.
Is the key word.
To create that freedom of thinking.
Yeah, the key word is that is this curve that if I only work with one particular use case, I can cut a lot of corners to put one thing in production, right? Yeah. And then if I do that many times, your maintenance cost and your complexity of running it, because you don't have the automation in place and all that, you have your value curve is peaking in the beginning and then it flattens out. It's very simple, right? Yeah. You have orphan analytics, you have orphan data pipelines. If you want to go the other way around and you want to build it in such a way so you have industrialized reuse and sharing. And when I say industrialized reuse and sharing, it's not only about the data, it's about the algorithm, it's about the infrastructure as code. Yes. If we want continuous integration and CI/CD, I don't want every single fucking team to invent that from scratch, reinventing the wheel 10 times. So I'm going to set that up, right?
I get it.
So now you have some sort of scalability tax.
But what are you setting that upon?
Yeah, so then all of a sudden now you come to this matrix that someone needs to think about platform perspective versus the core value perspective. Because if no one thought about the platform perspective, we will build data pipelines in Excel. That's what we've been doing for 30 years. So this is the balancing act, I think.
Yeah, and I think, back to point. I agree to some extent. We don't need to build a large platform if we only have one use case.
No.
Yeah. No, that's...
Or 3 or 5 maybe.
Yeah, or 3 or 5. No, and I think that kind of goes back to the point that, we need to ensure that we can do both at the same time. As we scale, we need to build out the capabilities we need for that scale. And if we're talking about now, you mentioned that we're right now, we have this, we have our entire estate in the cloud. But now we, realize, okay, that was built for actually lift and shift, and more of a kind of infrastructure.
We built it to offload the data center and not to scale data and AI.
Yeah, and not to scale application development in general. The whole kind of DevOps movement, end-to-end responsibility.
No, we were going out of a physical data center. That was the core idea.
Yeah. It's basically lift and shift to run their IaaS stack.
Yeah.
From virtualized on-prem to virtualized in the cloud.
Yeah.
Yes.
But now we realize, that environment's not really suitable for us when we want to move into kind of AI, as you mentioned, where we want or kind of application development in general.
You're so hardcore.
Where we want that.
You're so on it, Daniel.
And then we instead, we say, okay,
holy shit,
let's build a parallel environment from the scratch, and then we start with a single application, and let's build it for their needs.
Exactly.
And then as we want to move the next application there, let's expand it to their needs. And of course, there are some central capabilities we need to build from the start. We need to have firewalls, we need to have, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
but then, the idea is to scale it as we need it, but not to kind of
I can't hold my breath because, you know, what you're highlighting now in this sort of stuff that we've been working on and what I've been doing in Scania is trying to, and this is hard, man, for people to sort of to get to this. It's really a simple concept. But if you imagine that you have your old their dilemma, right? This is the operational use case. Let's go super fast and be anarchistic and just move on the use case. And then you have enterprise scalability over here. This is the bipolar understanding, and then we're trying to find the middle ground. So what we did within our peer community and what I'm pushing in Scania is that we take this bipolar view and we put that on an x-axis and on a y-axis concretely, right? On the y-axis, I guess. I'm not the math guy. On the y-axis, I really put all my use cases. So I put out all my value streams and I'm going to put down my operational value creation, real hardcore bottom line business value. What are we trying to achieve? And they become the vehicles. That's the use cases that I want to solve. And then I put my data and AI DNA on the x-axis. And then basically when we're creating a project, or, you know, the next release train, we are basically taking a couple of user stories which are related to the core value creation, and then we're making sure the relevant data and AI DNA use cases is done at the right time. So basically, even if we do one case, I really want CI/CD for that first case. Or when I do this first case, I really want to nail down the methodology for design thinking. And then it becomes a continuous journey of harvesting from one use case to the next use case. So whatever we have done on the first use case, we package whatever we think is data and AI DNA. And then we go into the next use case, and hopefully it's even in the new domain. Wow. Then we can take what they've done in one domain. So this becomes federated governance and becomes the use case is the vehicle, but we have a sort of data and AI DNA tax. So we are not cheating. We are doing it right, and we are maybe doing it 30% more expensive because we're doing it right to scale. Yeah. And if we do that in every single project, and that becomes the mindset, you are taking this bipolar problem and making it into sort of a trajectory for the future.
No, I mean, very pragmatic. That's the same thing, you know.
That's what you're doing, I think.
I mean, within all the development teams and all, I think what we, you know, all industries have been struggling with, you know, it's the, you know, okay, we're going to work agile, and we have these kind of feature teams, and then everyone just pushes new features. It's the same with the data teams, you know. We always want new data. We want new data, more data, you know. But, you know, we also need to ensure that, you know, these teams get kind of cycles to allocate to actually kind of improve what's already been done.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, because otherwise we just keep on building our technical depth, and that works for a while. But then, you know, every feature or every new data point that needs to be added just takes an, you know, additional complexity in time. You know, the time to deliver a new data point or a new feature goes like this. Because no one is really, you know, refactoring what's ever been done before and rebuilding what's done before. And I think, you know, that's also part of why I think it's so important as we, you know, get kind of everyone aligned. I mean, getting the business people aligned as well to understand that.
Yeah, that you have a different cycle because you need to think about it. We
can't allocate all time to build new features or just add on new data sources or kind of expand the data sources. We also need to add kind of 20 to 40% of our time to actually kind of refactor what's already been done.
And I think that we are now getting into... We are already on 2 hours soon, and we just actually started the good thing. It's about democratizing AI in the organization.
Do I have time for 2 questions or 1?
Yes, and I haven't even come to the goodies, which is basically the future.
Web3? Yeah. Another 2 hours?
Oh my God!
Let's move with the democratization of AI, because I know that you wanted. To ask. I don't know, but
I actually Kai has several questions, but I also want to. Me and Kai, you have a very good question from your AI Sweden hat. We should have time for that.
Yeah, I have. That was my second question. My first question is just from an airline industry perspective. It's a rare mix of being very regulated but very competitive.
Yeah.
Other industries have the benefit of either sharing research that make the entire industry leapfrog, or just sharing ways of practice.
Maybe banking.
Yeah, maybe banking, but it's still credit model, like fraud models and stuff like that. How much collaboration is there within the airline industry within your area?
That's a good one.
Ooh, to some extent, especially within the alliance, there is. I talked about the fraud case earlier. There it's been very interesting for the other carriers to actually understand what we're doing, because they're like, wow, why are you doing that? So I think, within the alliances, I think there is quite a lot of collaboration. But then, honestly, we use the same suppliers. We buy the same tools. So, in some sense, there is a lot of sharing across the industry as well. And, we have the same conferences.
Yeah, okay.
IATA is the same governing body for everyone. And, there is collaboration in there as well.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of mix.
How much industry research is there, if I'm going to take it Anders a little bit, because he's always calling for more industry research in the Nordics?
I think there could be a lot more. Especially in the airline industry in the Nordics, I don't know.
Particularly in fuel savings. Yeah. That should be a hot topic. Maybe not this week when it's Black Friday and all that, but
we used to do a conference on that. It was called Flight Operation.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
No, but it's an industry that's interesting because there's not that much competence outside there aren't many Nordic airlines. There's a few, not many of the scale of SAS. No. And then, so it's always challenging, and I think the industry research is not that big. It's difficult to kind of find great.
Well, that's a good segue to my other question, and I'll put on my AI Sweden hat. AI Sweden, is tasked by the government through Vinnova to accelerate the use of AI in Sweden. What can AI Sweden help Scandinavian Airlines with?
I think one part is kind of the people aspect we discussed before. How can we ensure that we have the right competences on board, and how can we train the right competences on the right skills? Then it's not, of course, we need kind of hardcore data scientists, which is, super into kind of the data science piece. But we also need kind of data scientists who is, who wants to expand and is really interested in how the business works. And I think, the mix of that, how can we drive these different competences? And also it's not only about kind of the data science. I think for everyone, how can we be more data literate? But if
I put the picture even bigger, because AI Sweden for me is basically ultimately grants from the government, and it's the government tools in order to accelerate AI, one of them. So what tools do we need as corporates that comes from that is government funded in order for that you can really utilize?
I think data.
Open data that's one of the topics we're talking about. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting. How can we get access to open data? It might be difficult.
If you look at it, it's going to be technology. Yeah. Access to your supercomputer that you have, fancy schmancy thing. I think everybody can tap on that.
But, for the most, do we need supercomputers?
You already mentioned talent.
Yeah, talent. Do we need supercomputers?
I'm curious about talent. Is it only finding new people, or also reskilling, help with reskilling, and support with reskilling internally?
No, I think both is needed. Yeah. And I think, we need to educate everyone in data. It's not just, people who are going to work as data scientists or data engineers or analysts. I think, we need to educate everyone about how do we interpret data.
Valerie Logan at Gartner coined in Gartner information as a second language. And the core concept is really we all need to know data and be data literate, relevant in detail to the role we are performing. So it means if you're a data scientist, you're one of the geeks who really need to know a lot.
Yeah.
But the CEO needs to know it in order to understand the decisions he's going to make.
Yeah, but that's the same, I usually talk about, with I think sometimes my employees think I'm, a bit, poking into the details. And I usually tell them, the reason...
The pink elephant in this, like, what is that?
Yeah, but the reason I do that is also because I want to understand on the level so that I can understand what is complex and what is simple.
Exactly.
Because then I can have better discussions, to other stakeholders. Then I don't need to go ask someone every time, is this difficult or is this simple? Because then I'm just a middle layer. And then I just keep on passing information.
In order for you to, because then you're one part, you're a stakeholder.
Yeah.
And the level of data you need to know is actually way deeper than other stakeholders because you need to be able to carry the story from your team.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So you need to actually go deeper on what not to do their job, but in order to do the storytelling and then pedagogically maybe frame it for someone else. Exactly.
And, I think that's relevant for all leaders.
Okay, so I will build on this because we need to close this something. And we haven't even touched about this. And it's related to what you do. And it's related to the future because this podcast is also like a time capsule about what we are doing right now and how this is going to impact the generation in 10 years from now. So from that point of view, I have 3 questions. The first one, how will aviation look like in 2030? How will the users of that aviation look like in 2030? Probably my daughter. She spoke English before she spoke Swedish. Not because we taught her, because Ryan from YouTube taught her. We have a problem with Ryan, but that's a different thing. And the third one is, what are you right now doing to prepare yourself for that future from an AI perspective?
That's a good question.
Just to complicate it while you're thinking, okay? So I read today, I did the research about the AI trends. And this is what I found. So first one, mixture between ATM and UTM, which is air traffic management and unmanned traffic management.
Oh, he's done his homework. I haven't.
Okay, so then it's like a mixture between unmanned aircraft flying and normal flying. AI in a ground handling, so fuel optimization, and they had ground handling, scheduling, etc. Airport security. Monitoring, probably. I don't know how this is going to go with GDPR.
Biometrics, probably.
Yeah, biometrics and etc. I don't know how they're going to sort this out, but AI assistance. So it's basically interesting. It is sound assistants that are helping the pilot instead of like looking at the data and stuff like that. The dashboard is it's saying like, well, now you need to change the course to this and that and whatever it is.
But isn't that kind of obligatory to what you said before about kind of self-driving airplanes?
Yeah, exactly. So
it's halfway there.
Aircraft health management. This is good because this is already there. It's predictive maintenance, right? Probably you work on that as well. Then it was interesting that Gatwick started with reducing delays by implementing AI in every single one of their ground control operations. Super good. Then it was Finland had some air taxi flight, good things there. Radar display worldwide. That was a new one implemented in 2019. First time in Lisbon or something. So you have like a cloud base and you can see the worldwide radar for every single flight, right? And then it was diversity in aviation. That it's a huge part. Obviously, so everybody is like working now to get a little bit more female into aviations.
I don't know what AI part.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the AI part,
this
but
is the
actually
aviation
it
trend.
has, because we need a little bit more people, female, especially in the technical part. And then you mentioned quite a lot of fraud detection, waste management, water detection, and then we had decarbonization and cybersecurity. So these are the top trends that AI will bring. Right?
A few trends,
right? So I was just buying you time until you figure out the question. How will the aviation look like? To repeat, how will the aviation look like in 2030? Who will be the customer? How will that customer look like in 2030? And what are you doing today to prepare for the future?
To be honest, I think 2030, was that 8 years, roughly?
Yeah. Roughly, right.
I think, on a general level, I don't think there will be much difference, unfortunately. I mean...
Cool.
No, I mean...
a bit like... kill everything.
no, I mean, if you talk from a kind of an airplane perspective,
Will we have a lot of electric airplanes in 2030?
No, I don't think so.
Would you believe that?
You're working on you have collaborations with Airbus.
We have collaborations with Airbus to kind of create a kind of short.
This is short
distance flights.
And what's the ETA?
I think it's roughly 2030. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, because it's not just the challenge here is that developing an entire new aircraft is not that simple.
No.
And also when you take into consideration, because we don't have the fuselage in the wings, you don't, where should you store the battery, how the weight perspectives.
So you start from scratch.
And then you need to kind of get it approved by all the authorities and, that you're allowed to fly it. And, it roughly takes 10 years.
Isn't that weird when you can create a rocket company in 10 years?
Yeah, but then you don't have any passengers on it. I think that the whole...
Well, they've had a few.
Yeah, but how many times did they crash and burn? I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
so it's a budget thing.
Yeah, not with people, just unmanned. But do you believe it's going to be drones or unmanned aircrafts or unmanned piloting going on?
I think that will come. I think it will come first, kind of in the freight part of the aviation industry. And then it becomes, how willing are we to fly on an unmanned vehicle? I think that's
fly all the time. I think it's 80%. It's automated. It's I was reading today. It's actually it takes the person basically to fly the airplane and then puts it in auto mode and then he lands it.
Yeah, but the thing is today, it's basically fly by wire, right? So it's no intelligence at all.
No.
So I mean, if something happens, then you're screwed. I mean, with current autopilot. So that's even if they fly themselves a lot,
human-centered AI.
As soon as something happens that's not according to what's been described
in the flight path.
And how will the service look like? Like this, imagine we are in a flight now from to Stockholm to Malaga. Will it look the same? Business class?
No, I hope that. Yeah, I mean, of course, there probably be different business depending on
people selling like with the choose like what you want to drink and stuff.
Probably not. I think that will change a lot, and I think the entire I hope that the entire airport experience will change a lot. Yeah. You had that regarding security, and that's also biometrics and discussions on how can we get kind of a touchless airport experience.
Yeah, I'm hoping for.
So you don't have to interact with anyone. You can basically go through. I think it's in one of the kind of airlines based in the UAE, Dubai or Emirates, or I can't remember which one it is. They actually have implemented in the airport a tunnel, where you go through an aquarium.
And then they check who you are.
Check who you are, because then you go and look at it, and then you can get a good look on your face, and you can do it through biometrics. So you don't have to go through, security, because then you already know who you are.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think those things to kind of make the trip easier from point A, and then I think how can we kind of expand the simplicity from kind of going from your home to your destination and back again.
A merger between train and plane. It's 2 cylinders.
Yeah, train and plane, or taxi and train, and can you check in your baggage in the taxi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, so you can start the journey when you leave your home, and no worries.
Yeah,
I think that is a better experience than many things.
Exactly.
Or if I can just lie down and sleep, in the Fifth Element on a plane, I'll be happy.
Well, I mean, just fly business.
So
you can do that.
Let's move to the second question.
I just don't need that space.
How will the customer look like in 2030? What they will be demanding at that point of time? It's going to be your kids and my kids flying.
They want iPads.
I think they will be demanding a lot more. I think, the whole thing we are so...
button generation,
Yeah, I think the whole thing we're so used to. We kind of... I mean, it all takes time, when you're going to fly and you transport yourself somewhere. It's difficult to kind of... Unless we invent teleportation, I think it will be difficult for, to be able to be really good. But I think... it's all about that. How do we kind of integrate the experience together with the things we have on ourselves? We have the in-flight entertainment systems, as we're Houston. It was really cool, back in the day. But now everyone has their iPhones and iPads.
Yeah, exactly. If SAS has its own Netflix, so as soon as you
but it's a huge
into the plane,
this infotainment is huge difference now, where you can see some has not really cared so much, and then you have a couple of the airlines who's gone bananas in terms of giving you 30, 50, 100 some really fresh movies and a very good. Infotainment experience.
For people with kids, that is a blessing,
Yeah. So it's interesting. So this whole sort of that part.
No, but how can we also then merge it? Why don't we have the same experience as in a hotel where you can use your phone and kind of
exactly
on a Chromecast? If you look at our kind of European flights now, and also intercont, we have internet everywhere.
Exactly.
So I think
not everywhere, but it's okay.
No, but the idea on the airplanes, especially within. I think it's a bit better, if you go within Europe, due to satellites and everything. But then the idea is that everyone on the aircraft should be able to stream Netflix on their phone. So that's the capacity we have.
And this is actually quite simple experience that I have my content I like. I have my apps I like. So the only thing I really need to do, and I need Bluetooth in order to get whatever I have on my phone. Yeah. Okay, but I want that on a bigger screen. And by the way, in order to get my phone to work, I then need satellites.
Great stuff. We have a new company. Find a name right now. Log in. Make it up.
No, and I think, but I think what I've been talking about internally, and I don't know how to achieve it. But how can we think about? We're talking about the customer experience from type of when you're booking situation. But how can we make the journey a great experience?
Yeah.
I think that is the key, actually, because you were mentioning before why everybody building the rocket ship, but. Is the rocket ship necessary? Because what is the purpose? Why are we building a rocket ship? Because we want to travel from one place to another, and then we want to optimize our customer experience, how we get in there. So customer experience, I believe it's important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think
most of the time, the most annoying thing is actually how do you get to the airplane? When you get to the airplane, it's still okay, right? You sit down, everything is done.
When you actually land inside the airplane and sit down, it's fine.
It's great. But between I just traveled from Macedonia or North Macedonia, what it's called right now, from Poland. It was terrible.
The whole experience around the airplane.
Because now you have the airplane was beautiful. Everything was great. They didn't have internet. It's really, really weird. I'm used to. But we landed in Poland, and everything was fine. Everything was good. They were interesting enough. Everybody speaks Polish. Nobody speaks English in the country. So one vaccination checkup, second vaccination checkup, third vaccination checkup. So how many vaccination checkup are you going to make? You already took it from the beginning.
You should have the data by now,
right? But this data should be concurred with the flight agency, right? So I got when you come there, as soon as we landed from Stockholm, there was armed people that were basically selecting, do you have a corona pass or not? Super great, nothing special, right? And then you go to police, what is called the border, right? And you wait in a queue, and you wait in a queue for 45 minutes. Until then, I could have had a coffee, spend money in their coffee shops or duty free and etc. That is wasted money for me. Completely. And the worst thing is that on the right, you have automized doors. Right? So you basically scan yourself and you can go in. But there is nobody manning them, so therefore they're closed. So you need to wait in a queue. Then you go inside.
But it's a weird system. Imagine if you were to set up a restaurant with a great idea, but you're forced to work underwater. That's a bit like that. You have a great airline, but you're forced to work in one
that's the
airport.
challenge. Also, when we talk about the things, we want to touchless travel. It's not only us. We need to get the airports aligned. We need to get everyone else. In that we need to get the customs aligned.
But your bottom line conclusion, I think it's valid. That what is the fundamental change and shift we will see in the next 8 years to 2030? It has more to do with the airline.
Customer experience.
No, the customer experience outside the airline. That actually there's a huge difference in the airplane itself. Yeah. That's your prediction.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah. There is a report, AI Fly, it's called, by IATA, released in 2019, when they're talking about the big macro trends. And they're talking about open data, European open data, when everybody basically share data. So they want to make this seamless and etc. And I hope we're going to come.
Because the touchless will need seamless. Touchless will need seamless.
Yeah.
No,
Of course.
it's all about data. If they share data, everybody, then everything is going to be fine. My experience would have been much better.
No, but that's the thing, and that's what we're discussing with the airports right now. How can we share more data together so that we can make the customer experience even better? Because right now, we don't know if you pass security.
We don't exactly. That's the problem. That's the real problem.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, like we
for that.
Yeah.
That's it.
We had so many more questions.
He didn't answer how they are preparing for the future, but we will take that. After work is not.
I will take it after.
Two more questions. You know what they are. Let's close.
No, so I mean, like we're running over time here, so many more questions, and we had some philosophical questions and some more. But I'm really happy with the conversation, the way it went, because we had some really good tips and tricks. I not tips and tricks, maybe is a good word, but we had some really good insights in what is really important in order to succeed, the whole matrix and all that. But let's now move to the last two standard ending questions that we love to ask any of our guests, and the number one is, what is next in your life? What's happening? Sort of, are you something major or privately or work-wise or something exciting?
No, I think I just get out of this kind of this small kid situation. This small kid situation with all the kind of being sick leave and everything, and then on the other hand, the main is kind of the exciting journey we're on now at SES. We're going to invest heavily in kind of technology and skills and ramp up significantly, and how that will look.
Yeah, so you have an exciting couple of a roadmap. You know what you're going into in 2022, and it excites you.
Definitely.
Cool. Okay, last question. Who would you want to recommend for us to have on this podcast, so we have great guests like yourself?
Good question. I would actually say Erik Fredriksson.
Erik Fredriksson. Who is that?
He's vice president for intelligent services at Securitas.
Ooh, I like the challenge.
What's your angle to Erik? A friend of yours or someone you met?
He was actually the one who hired me to Accenture back in this.
So an Accenture, yeah. I love that. And
I will send the invitation to Erik. Shout out to Erik if you're listening to this. Expect the email. So.
No, we met. We've been meeting quite a few times as well in regarding this different kind of AI kind of roundtables, etc. And I think Securitas is doing some really interesting stuff as well. Cool. And
there's so many angles there, because we have the cybersecurity, AI security topic that we haven't really talked so much about. That's super good, really good.
Yeah, and also what can you do, what can't you do?
Exactly.
We haven't touched the GDPR topic.
No, there's so many topics. We
skip that. But man, thank you so much. I'm so much more excited for Swedish future than I was walking into this podcast. And I would like to say to any CEO out there embarking on this journey, to treat you to a lunch and try to tap you for as much insights as much as they can for an hour.
Thanks.
Good closure.